Hi guys, before we start the episode, we have something very important to share.
So a lot of research that we do for this channel is very important and dear to us. We want our facts to be as diverse, as on point as possible, and none of that would be possible without Wikipedia.
And Wikipedia is actually in a uh, crucial state where they need money to run their operations, and they have a link up on all of their pages where you can just donate some money. And even as something as simple as 150 rupees will make a huge difference. And if you think, like, if you've ever used Wikipedia and never donated, if you feel that they've at least given you 150 rupees of knowledge, please at least go donate that. Every rupee counts. Uh, you'll be doing not only us, but I think a large portion of the world a favor. Thank you so much. All right, what is up, guys? This is part 2 of the mini series on big tech. As per the request on the Instagram stories, we have shortened all our Kadai Benchu shorts into 20 minutes. And this was actually part of part 1, a large 40-minute episode about big tech and Apple. But now it's become 2 parts. So in this episode, we're gonna explore Apple and its monopolistic practices. So here you go. Enjoy. I'd like to give an example of this. And I'm not going to give an example of Facebook or Amazon because those are very common examples and they have a lot of details. So I want to delve into that in part 2. But in part 1, I want to give an example of Apple because people were surprised when Apple had to testify as a monopoly. Because as we all know, Apple, yeah, they're rich. They're the world's most valuable company, but their products are expensive. No one really buys them, especially if you're in India. If you're not in like a first world country, no one really buys them. Yeah, they have an ecosystem, but they are not a monopoly by any means. So the reason Apple had to testify, and this will demonstrate how we got here, is because of the App Store. The concern was that the App Store is the single entry point for an app into the iPhone. And I personally think that's fine. That's not monopolistic. You own the iPhone is your product, and you want to control what comes in and comes out. It's not, and this, you could say something like Comcast is, but if they said that upfront, hey, we are not, Comcast is promised for a service that sort of doesn't discriminate. So Apple promises that. Apple promises anybody can develop apps for us. They just need to go through an approval process. And that's a fair thing. You don't want apps that compromise the user's privacy. And Apple is very particular about quality control. One thing any iPhone user can say is at least a good user experience. And Apple is particular about that. And that's nothing wrong. They say they don't discriminate, which is completely so if you're Google, you can still develop Google Maps on Apple. There's an Apple Maps and a Google Maps, right? As long as so you could say Apple is not monopolistic or non-competing. But there's one very interesting example that really showcases how they can abuse power and pretend to be totally competitive. Let's take the case of Spotify. And I take the case of Spotify and not something like Google Maps is because Apple has an interesting piece of software / subscription service called Apple Music, where users pay a monthly fee to listen to music, similar to Spotify. By the way, Kadai Benchu is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. What Apple did was, so when you develop apps for Apple, right, there's something called an in-app purchase. And in-app purchase is nothing but the user can buy something from the phone with ease. So it can just be with their Face ID or Touch ID. They can authorize the purchase and boom, you've bought it. You don't need to go through the hassle of anything. It's completely secure because Apple's completely doing it on device, and it's actually pretty good. It's a really good implementation of technology, in my opinion. An interesting thing is Apple takes a 30% cut for pretty much all sort of, not all, I should be very clear. Apple doesn't make money of all the in-app purchase that happens, but any purchases that requires the developer to use Apple's payment gateway takes a 30% cut. And I'm going to run over some specifics here so the audience gets some perspective. So for the physical goods, right, like you're buying something off Amazon or Uber Eats, that's something you're physical, right? So so Apple doesn't take a cut of that. But let's say you're buying a paid app, you're buying Photoshop, or you're buying, let's say you're even let's say even take like with subscriptions, right? Apple takes a 30% cut of that. And with regards to subscription, just so the users have the right information, from the second year onwards, Apple makes it a 15% cut. And
Oh.
the reason I give you this information is because Apple is giving this person, the Apple is giving you this case for why you should give us this. Apple's justification rather to the developer why you should give us money is because people have our phones, they have a portal into your services. So we are a really effective middlemen. That's why you need to give us a cut. And if you think about it, that's what your phone really is. You just subscribe to a middleman and you're just constantly giving someone money through that. A very dark thought once you understand that. But either way, and now you can understand, right? So if the physical goods, you could argue that, okay, yeah, sure, the app was more of a convenience. People were still going to get it. It was, and again, that's not really fair argument in my opinion. But if you don't use that argument, a lot of people won't build apps for the iPhone. So it's a slippery slope. So Apple says that's my actual opinion. And with subscriptions, you could say Apple's like the first year people bought it because of us, because the iPhone is so easily accessible. People bought a subscription service because of us. But by the second year, we can agree people actually like your service. That's why they have it. So give us only 15% and you have 85%. But companies like Spotify and Netflix aren't happy with this cut, and justifiably so. Netflix and Spotify are basically the number one player in their industry, despite being even sometimes the more expensive one. But Apple was demanding a cut for it. And so Spotify is the real company that's really vocal about this. They call it the Apple tax. And so what Spotify did was it basically said, hey, we don't want to use the in-app purchases. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to let customers come to our website, sign up, pay on our website, and then use our services, which is completely fine. It's not a loophole. It's a perfectly legal thing because people didn't pay because of the iPhone. People are just using the iPhone to have a service that they paid elsewhere. So that's what Spotify did. But as soon as they did that, some interesting developments happened. So initially, the way this happened was there was a button or something which they click and they'll redirect you to Spotify's website. And Apple's like, no. Then people are still buying because of our phone because it's convenient for them. So the developer isn't allowed to say how to subscribe to the service. They're just supposed to say you can't subscribe. So if you were to open Spotify, log out, or open Netflix and log out and try logging in, it'll say if you're not a member, please sign up and come back. Are you on Spotify, Adi?
Actually, I'm going to do it. Yeah, just keep talking. Let me just try.
Okay. So Adi will tell you what it actually says. Yeah. So and you can't direct the user. So sort of intuitively understood. So users have to intuitively understand and sign up on the computer and come back. And as soon as Apple did that, Apple was angry. Apple sort of rejected bills from Spotify. They said they're using misleading advertising. They're calling it free. So if Spotify has an excellent page dedicated to how much they hate Apple. If you can actually go to Spotify, you just Google why Spotify hates Apple. You'll find a Spotify page. Click on that. It's an excellent, well summarized, biased of course, but well summarized, just rant about why Apple's being Apple and how it's hindering progress. So yeah, and Apple played a bunch of tricks. You couldn't make Siri play songs from Spotify for a long time. Spotify wasn't allowed to make a watch app. And think about how convenient it is, right? You just have your watch. You can change your song. You're listening to, let's say, on a Bluetooth speaker. You're just changing it on your watch. It's very convenient. It's a very practical thing to do. A company like Spotify would thrive by building an app for the watch. But Apple just didn't let it do that because obviously it doesn't want it to thrive because it's eating some of. And guys, listen, you could. I'm sure a large portion of this is just the fact that it wasn't paying the Apple tax. That's 30% of its cut. But I also think this is where it becomes even more monopolistic. There's a competing piece of software and service called Apple Music. And Apple didn't want anyone to bite a piece of that. Adi, do you have it open?
Yeah,
okay.
So, wait, do you want to finish or do you want me to like...
Yeah, I'll just quickly wrap this up. So, yeah, that's sort of where I want to leave you with, how even Apple, a company with a crystal press record, right? A company that, well, not crystal, but, given everything that lately happened with big tech, it's one of the most it's the good guys. Even they have monopolistic tendencies, and just because the user doesn't see it, the thing is, this is something we're going to explore further into the series. These monopolies don't always make it feel like the user is being trapped, like Instagram does, right? Like Instagram, you feel like you can't leave Instagram, you can't go to another social media place. But there are several people in this chain of technology, people who write the programs, people who sell you things, people who are advertising things to you. These people are all just locked in this one system, and if they speak up, they're bullied into an acquisition, like Jacinma, or they're just pushed away into non-existence. So yeah, that's it. And Adi, I think you have logged out of Spotify. Do you have any interesting insights?
So I logged out and I created a new account. Actually, pretty fast. In that time, I just created a new account. And let's say, okay, right now it's telling me if I want to get premium, I need to get more info. So want to learn about premium is the question it's giving me. And the button it's giving me is get more info. I click on get more info and it tells me what all I can do. And then it just tells me I have to go to the website. You can't upgrade to premium in the app. We know it's not ideal. The app is telling me this. It's
Wait, one sec. Wait, let me just correct you. It didn't tell you go to the website. It just told you it can't upgrade. Like the app doesn't say you have to go to the website.
It doesn't say anything. You can't upgrade to premium in the app. We know it's not ideal.
Exactly.
And yeah, I have to go to the website. It's not even saying go to the website. It's just saying you can't do it here.
Yeah. And look at this, Adi. Let me just point out. A company like Spotify or Netflix, it takes a company like that to stand up to Apple. Companies that have competing services that are number one. You know, they're not second place. They're number one, and they still get bullied by, I don't know, Apple Music, Apple TV, or number 3, number 4. They're not number 2. They're not immediate competitors. They're getting bullied by those companies. That's how powerful these big tech companies are.
No, it's just like fascinating, like the loopholes that people need to think about to even be in the first place. Like it's quite difficult. Like for I know like Netflix, how hard it is for Netflix to be where they are. Well, there are other companies like Amazon. Like Amazon is so much better. Like you have more movies. You have it's much cheaper. But the question arises: why is Netflix at the top? The amount of research they need to do about buying movies, getting exclusives, getting originals, the directors they have to sign with, the amount of freedom they give to the directors, all have to surpass the quality that Amazon can provide. Only then they can be at the top. Netflix cannot survive if they come to the prices that Amazon are at. They can't give the amount of movies that Amazon can do. But all Netflix can do is the quality. It's the same thing Spotify does. Spotify has their exclusives. Spotify has their
song discovery.
Yeah, song discovery. Things that they have made their own, and the way that they have to stay in the industry, they need to put a lot more hard and smart work to stay in the industry. It's actually quite sad. It's actually quite weird. Like yesterday, I was using Sun Next. We wanted to watch a movie and we're using Sun Next. And my God, that app is far superior to any app for any OTT streaming I've ever seen. You have features on that app which are brilliant. The quality of the app is brilliant. Like if you want to watch, let's say you want to watch Vijay movies. I don't know why, but you want to watch Vijay movies. You can just click on Vijay's name. It will tell you every movie that he's acted in and is on Sun Next. You can do this for any actor, any director, any producer. I would love this feature on Netflix, but it doesn't exist. It's only a amount of time. There's so many OTT platforms, but I really don't think these are going to stand the test of time. These will have to be sold to bigger companies. Sun Next will have to be sold to Netflix or Amazon. There's no way Sun Next can just keep on going on like this, even though it's far superior.
I have to disagree there. I think India is one of the few countries that's not actually fully affected. It's not in this. I personally think India is definitely affected by this big tech companies, but I think India has, because of the spending power of the consumer, it'll take a while for them to get locked in. And
exactly.
And they won't think twice about. They'll be like, oh, photos only. No, it's cheaper for me. For them, it's it's not worth it.
Yeah.
They'll actually make the switch. And I personally have a lot of respect for Sun Network, and I really look up to them as a business. So I think they will definitely crush people like Hotstar. And yeah, I'm
I
a team
doubt it.
Sun Network dude.
I'm not. I don't think so. I just think it's see, because it's India. India and China definitely are separate from this. The amount of spending power the consumer has in India and China is far superior to Europe or America.
Far superior.
But yeah, far superior. Definitely far superior. Like when TikTok got banned from India, every day TikTok was losing $500,000. If the same thing happens in America, TikTok is not going to be losing $500,000 every day. The amount of money you can spend, that's because of people we have, right? Amount of people we
Oh,
have.
You mean as a whole? Yes, agreed.
As a whole, not as
Yeah,
a single
agreed.
person. Like
Yeah,
united, we are far stronger than any other country. So it's just a matter of time. So Sun Next or Hotstar isn't immune to this. They just have a longer time to live than any other company.
fair enough. But yeah, I think before we close this episode, I just want to again demonstrate how we got here again, because that's the main theme of this episode, right? So when the App Store first launched, I'm going to stick to the Apple example because that'll really show. When the App Store first launched, it was revolutionary. Oh, Apple is going to verify every app. Apple is going to make sure it's in sync with the operating system they have built. Quality is going to be great. And Apple, for the most part, actually doesn't discriminate, in my opinion. They do a really good job of reviewing pretty much all apps to a relative degree of fairness. And so, despite that, when the iPhone became so popular, especially in countries where the individual has higher spending power and things like that, these apps, so there is even this thing, right? People, there is this common reason for why iPhones are better. They say all the good apps comes there first. And you'll wonder why. You'll like, people in India, China, larger population, why don't people put an Android app first? Yeah, it's harder to develop and it's a little icky, but one, it's easy to develop on an iPhone. That's a huge deal for developers. Trust me, I'm one. But more importantly, you'll be developing for people who have the ability to spend money on your app. You'll be developing for the penetration in countries like the US and Australia, which is huge for a small company that's looking for people to spend money on them. And yeah, that's a marketplace Apple has created. And without it knowing, I'm pretty sure it didn't look at it. So again, right, all of this makes a lot of sense in hindsight. Like, it feels like, oh my God, these guys are mass detective people who worked it out Sherlock Holmes style, right? But I'm sure there was some of that. There was definitely some of that. But sometimes things just click, and in a new industry that's just maturing, great things like this, not good, I'm not going to say they're good or bad, but they're definitely great things like this are bound to happen, and that's why we are here.
That's brilliant. I never thought about that. Okay, more on that on the next episode.
Yeah, on the next episode, we're going to delve into more interesting and juicy companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google. I'm sure a lot of you will be interested in that. And yeah.
Oh, and usual. TikTok.
Oh, and yeah, and how, what the state of TikTok is, and hopefully by the time some things will happen and we can give you a more complete coverage of what TikTok is going to do and what things are going to be. But yeah, as usual, thank you so much for listening. Nandri.
Vanakkam.